We've had what I can only really describe as a amazing amount of information drop about Dragon Age of the Veilguard in the last week or so since it was revealed. And I want to go into this Game Informer article that has given us the most info ever, or so far, to the point of spoilers. So be warned for that a bit. I won't be talking too much about that stuff. I'm just kind of interested in talking about the game and some of the big things and some of the things I don't think are getting quite enough attention. So let's get into it. So here we have the Game Informer article written by Wesley LeBlanc, a deep dive into Dragon Age, the Veilguard's combat abilities, skill tree, and more. I do suggest going and just reading this article. There's a lot of really good info in here. I'm not going to cover in this video because I have a kind of a different focus. But what I do want to talk about is really what kicks off here at the beginning. So they talked to a couple of the devs here. I know specifically Corinne Boucher is on here being spoken to, and this shift in strategy. So a lot of this conversation in here goes on about combat and things like that being different, where this does appear to be more of like an action RPG that is going to make some people happy, some people mad. Myself, this being really my first Dragon Age game, I've played Inquisition. I hate the combat in that game to the point where it's the main reason I stopped playing, beyond the fact that it is a insanely long game. This action RPG thing is exciting for me. There's been lots of OG fans of like the first game, Dragon Age Origins, who don't seem so happy about it. But what also, and it's not really mentioned in this article, another shift in strategy that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about is that this game appears that it's not going to be a big open world game like Inquisition, and instead it seems like it's going to be something a lot more akin to the hub and mission strategy or type of game that we saw in the Mass Effect games. This is something that if you've been around my channel enough, you'll know this is something I'm actually hoping for from the next Mass Effect game, that instead of doing the Andromeda thing and trying to do one or multiple big open world areas where you have to like find side missions and do all that, I'm hoping the next Mass Effect is going to be kind of like what this is, this hub and mission. Now in this game, it's going to be, I believe, the Lighthouse, which is connected to Solus, and that's where you start getting in the spoiler stuff, so I'm not going to talk about that. But that's kind of your hub, and then it sounds like we're going to be going out into mission areas. Now, I don't know if they've specified yet, and I haven't seen it, if there's going to be no open world exploration or anything like that. I imagine there will be, and there will likely be other hubs and stuff like cities and things that we can go to with merchants and things like that, especially side quest givers and all of that. But this seems like it's going to be a big change, and as much talk is going into, like in this article, the combat and the RPG mechanics and how things all work together, which is fair. What I don't think is being talked about enough is that we are probably getting, in my opinion, a preview of what the next Mass Effect is going to look like, with a game that is going to maybe try to simplify the formula a little bit in order to expand on the things that maybe people care about more. In games like Inquisition and Andromeda, we had those symptoms, that open world sickness that we dealt with a lot, and we still do to a point, where the Assassin's Creed Valhalla effect, where just making these impossibly gigantic worlds and these impossibly long games that may appeal to some people, but the majority of folks don't want to play a game for 70 hours and spend most of that time having to explore new places. It's that there is something to be said for the likely majority of players who want to feel like they got their money's worth out of an experience, but maybe don't feel like they have to invest like a full-time job's amount, multiple weeks of hours into a game. So I kind of want to talk about that in the shift of strategy, even though that's not necessarily what the article is about. And that's the main thing I wanted to talk about, was how I think people may not realize that this game is taking multiple big changes in the franchise, which, as Corinne says in here, every entry into this franchise of Dragon Age has changed the formula up quite a bit. This one's doing it as well, and maybe even in an even bigger way. Now, actually getting into the article, one of the things I kind of pick up from is, this action RPG talk, which has upset some people. It actually makes me really happy because it seems like something I actually want to play, as opposed to like Baldur's Gate 3, where I learned to enjoy the real time, the type of combat that had. But it's still not my favorite. I still prefer the, have more control of what's going on at any given time. This seems like it's going more towards that action RPG thing. If you remember back when the leaks of that gameplay happened, I believe that was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. That definitely looked like it had much more of like a God of War style, like Ragnarok or the reboot series. Very, very heavy and deliberate combat. This seems like it's going to be, it's evolved to a point where it's a little more acrobatic and a little looser, but still is going to be playing on that a lot. What they talk about a lot here is the combinations of skills and things like that. So from the Mass Effect franchise, if you consider how there's so many skills and stuff where you set up you set up a skill, you use a skill on an enemy, and then either a companion or even your own use another skill to set that off to create an explosion or to do some extra amount of damage. That's gonna play really huge into this game, and that's exciting for me. And the way they've set up their UI is it's going to make that extremely clear. And it's going to be really, it's almost going to throw it in your face. Like, if you use this skill in combination with so-and-so skill, it's going to lead to, this huge amount of damage, especially if the enemy you're fighting is weak to that type of element or whatever, that skill has. So I think that's really cool, especially because it seems like it's being, explained or telegraphed really, really well in the way the UI works. We had, in the article here, it goes into the abilities and skill tree and how it seems like if you look at all these little nodes in this picture, this isn't, gonna be nothing. I assume we're gonna start here in the middle with whatever, specialization and type of character you picked. And then you can, branch out towards these other things. Now you could be a master of none and kind of, be a little bit into everything, or go really, really heavy into certain things. I love when RPGs do that because I like one thing I always disliked was like in the original Division game, they had this system where you could invest into different kind of skills and specializations, but it kind of made you go all in on one, where I always loved the idea of being able to, if you want, be a generalist and maybe not be super powerful at any one thing, but be a little bit powerful at everything, especially if they're going to be doing this system where you're going to be running into enemies and stuff that have, weaknesses or strengths and things like that. I think it'd be fun to be able to play around with that a bit. And more than anything, I'm glad to see in the bottom left the refund points button there, where like many other games, you can get stuck in the build you're doing for that particular run. I like that we can do that. It's a little thing, but it's something that matters a lot to me. They go in here talking about how relationships matter with how you unlock skills for your companions, how your character, the Rook, is going to impact how you can level up your companions and things like that. And then companions in combat. This is where they go into talking about the combinations of skills and stuff like that. This is a really great. I think that trailer and the gameplay trailer even that they showed maybe didn't give everything that we needed. I think they would have been smart to show us some combat from later in the game where we're more leveled up and there's more of those combinations happening and more of kind of that late game or even mid game combat happening that people seem kind of concerned about, that this isn't gonna feel like a real RPG, this is gonna be cheapened, it's gonna be too easy, it's being too casualized. I suspect from what they've said, what they've shown, this article and other things, that's not going to be the case. There's going to be plenty of depth for people who want it, but it will still be approachable for newer players. And something that I'll leave in this video with, this is the first Dragon Age game in 10 years. They, I'm sure, want to respect those OG fans, those people who played Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Inquisition, and those first two games being even older. But I think there's some kind of weird attitudes right now about, being kind of too sentimental or stuck in the old ways. If they just tried to make a game like any of those other ones, which are all very different themselves, this game would probably fail miserably. Those games, old isn't bad, but new isn't bad either. And it seems like they've made a real effort to try to take those old formulas, take the parts that people seem to like the most, modernize them, put a new modern spin on this as well, and put out a game that not only will hopefully make those old OG fans happy, but will pull in all of the people who started playing games in the last 10 years who maybe have never heard of Dragon Age. And I know that there's people who are going to be, clutching their pearls over that, but they shouldn't, because if you want this game to be successful, if you want more Dragon Age games, if you want BioWare to continue making games as a studio, you should probably want this to be successful, even if it's not the exact game that you're asking for. And honestly, I would say that about Mass Effect as well. I genuinely believe that if you want a clue about how they're going to handle the next Mass Effect game, this is probably a slight clue to that. Now, we're all hoping that the next Mass Effect isn't going to take, 7-8 years to develop. It's not going to go through multiple reboots. It's not going to go through all of the turmoil that this game seemed to have gone through. But when it comes to the final product, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the next Mass Effect game does something to try to harken back to the OG games, to try to satisfy those players to a point, but is going to be looking for a modern audience to try to push this game and the franchise and their studio forward into the future, because you can't do that purely off nostalgia. And that's my piece for this one. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you want more Dragon Age videos, news, and speculation, all of that, Mass Effect, BioWare, EA, just gaming stuff in general, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this article, how you're feeling about Dragon Age in general, maybe when you think it's going to come out. I think it's coming sooner than later. If you really want to support these videos, my 2 podcasts, my stream that I occasionally do, consider becoming a YouTube member. You get videos like this early. You get a cool little icon beside your name when you make comments, and you get my undying appreciation, as well as some other cool perks, like a little extra room in the Discord if you choose to join that. So hit that YouTube membership if you would like to, or check out my merch store, all of that if you like mugs, and so on. That is all I have for this one. So until next time.